Good evening, good evening. Welcome to another edition of Folks Talking Sports here on our Folks Talking Sports Twitter account, as well as the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel. I am Kris Gardner, one of the co-hosts. He's here. All right. All four of us are now here.
Yes,
Joining me, you see on
sir.
screen, Willy Gibson from WTG Sports, James Mueller from the sports editor of the Daily Cougar. I'm going to bring him in via audio because we're high tech. We can do that. And Yanez from Pawd, Slama, Jama, and the Community Impact newspaper. How are you, gentlemen?
Doing well, sir. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Andy, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are y'all?
I'm all right. James, how are you?
Doing well.
Okay. Where should I start? Screw it. I'm gonna get right into it. USC, UCLA, bolting, Pac-12
Come
for
on.
the Big 10,
Come on in.
the Big 16. I'm going to say this first and let you guys, you gentlemen, dive in for it as well. And if anybody is a Rocket fan, we'll discuss Rockets in the NBA, most likely in the latter part of the show, this Folks Talking Sports. But we're going to get some things off our chest with this bolting for money, this money grab from the president of UCLA and USC. Do not tell me that you are thinking of the welfare of the student athletes when you do this. Don't tell me. Don't tell me that and expect me to believe you. Let me say it like that. You can say it. It's not true. You can say it all day long, put out statements, all that kind of stuff. This is a money grab. Okay? Pure and simple. This is a money grab. But James and Andy, I'll get you guys' thoughts first because I was on air with AJ on his show when I saw the news, and then we called you to get your thoughts on it live on Thursday. So I know your reaction initially, but I want to get Andy and James. What were your thoughts when you saw it, heard it, whatever? Let's go from there. James, you first.
Yeah, I mean, it caught me by surprise just because, I hadn't been hearing much about, the UCLA and USC making a move. There wasn't, a ton of chatter. And it moved real quick, as soon as the reports came out. By the end of that night, the Big Ten had already voted, we're accepting them and stuff. So they moved real quick. But yeah, like you said, I mean, it's all about the money. They can say whatever they want, but look at football. If you want to put your students in the best chance of winning, the Pac-12 is a lot easier to win in than the Big Ten, other sports too. And like you said, it's all about the money. It's definitely travel is going to be weird, flying coast to coast. There's a lot of things that go in, but like we said, we always say, it's a business, money talks, and these people, if they're presented with, an opportunity to make big time money, they're going to jump on it. And so, yeah.
Andy, what were your thoughts, your initial reaction when you first saw, heard, whatever the news?
Well, my initial reaction when I first saw it came across my timeline on Twitter, and my first reaction was that there's got to be some type of troll account. I took that account, looked at it, then I kept seeing reports coming. So I was like, oh man, it must be true. And initially, I couldn't believe it. Like James said, I mean, it honestly, at least from an outside perspective, obviously we're not involved with UCLA, USC, or the Big Ten for that matter. It kind of came out of left field, and the more news broke and like James said, it moved really quickly. By Thursday night, they had already voted on it, and USC and UCLA were going to be a part of the Big Ten. But like you said, Kris, at the end of the day, it all comes down to money, the payouts, and to go back to if there are any old school wrestling fans back there, but it makes me think of the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Everybody has a price, and for USC and UCLA, that Big Ten payout. That was their price. And at the end of the day, Pac-12 tradition, none of that mattered because at the end of the day, those two schools got that bag.
And that's it exactly. And from a financial standpoint, none of us on this panel, people watching us on Twitter, on YouTube, we understand it's about the money. Okay, if you got a chance to double your revenue, we understand that. One of my first questions is, why is this an all sports move? Okay, no one has told me, convinced me that this could not be just a football move. This is a football move, money-wise, TV, ESPN, Fox, all that kind of stuff. Just take UCLA, USC football and call it the Big Ten Football Conference. for football, because James touched on it. The other sports, the closest teams for UCLA, USC, and Los Angeles, now in the Big Ten for the other, every other sport, is Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska, 1,200 miles away. So tell me, volleyball, midweek, what are they going to do? Baseball games, midweek. And then you expect them to go to class the next day. And then you're going to say to us, well, the mental aspect, the mental health of our student assets is important to us. It's imperative. The hell it is. If you got them flying into, at minimum, 1,200 miles for a conference game, they arrive probably the day before, sleep that night, compete, and then chances are you're going to fly back that night of the match, if it ends, for school, class the day after. 1,200, 1,500 miles away. And I haven't even mentioned those rare possibilities of LA, UCLA going to Rutgers for a conference game. What the hell? Mr. Gibson from the Ohio State University. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, to piggyback on Andy brought it up, old school wrestling, and he brought up the $1 Million Man. Don't hate us because you ain't us. To all the non-believers, to all the haters. No, I'm playing. I'm just in all seriousness. My thoughts initially, well, just to put a bow on the financial aspect. In 2021, Pac-12 schools distributed $344 million. Okay, Pac-12 schools distributed $344 million in 2021. Conversely, the Big Ten schools distributed $680 million. Double. Now, yes, while it can be said, and it is being said, and factually, that USC and UCLA is a financial move for them. However, it also is a financial move for the Big Ten Conference. And follow me with this. Now, the Big Ten Conference now is in 5 of the top 7 television markets in the United States: New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. This is strictly a money move. Eyes on the teams. The Big Ten, I read something yesterday or Friday maybe. The Big Ten Conference now in California is going from 59 cents a month per subscriber to $1.50 per subscriber per month. Just that quickly. Apple, Thursday night, re-engaged the Big Ten Conference in discussions on media rights to distribute Big Ten sports. It's clearly financial.
No question.
So, I mean, for anyone that pretends it's not, it's crazy. And Gene Smith and President Christina Johnson had a press conference Friday morning that I was able to be a part of. And Gene Smith, the money quote of them all, the question was asked, was this a response by the Big Ten to what the SEC did last year and adding Texas and Oklahoma? And Gene Smith, Ohio State athletic director, quote, "We weren't doing this in response to the SEC. We did this for our own needs, media and marketing rights. Period."
Okay. Agreed. It's definitely a money grab.
Yep.
And it's a body blow to the Pac-12. You're losing 40% of your revenue possibly. But I did just a quick glance before tonight's show. Mm-hmm. Notre Dame men's hockey, okay, is in the Big Ten. The other sports are in the ACC. Notre Dame football is independent. So again, explain to me why we just cannot have a football-specific conference for all this money and just do it that way.
Well, two things. Gene Smith has presented that to athletic directors as recently as, this is July now, so May. As recently as May, Gene Smith presented that exact scenario. Football falls under the CFP. NCAA handles everything else. They handle all sports championships, March Madness, College World Series, baseball, gymnastics, everything else non-football is handled by the NCAA. CFP handles college football only. I don't. It's been mildly received, and we'll see how much traction it gets now with the fact that Los Angeles, basically, UCLA and USC are now joining the Big Ten. But it's been something Gene Smith has been speaking on for years. Exactly that. Now, to mention Notre Dame, just a little bit of a history lesson. In 1993, Penn State joined the Big Ten. Solo, one team. And for years, the Big Ten caught jokes like, "Oh, it's the Big 11. Oh, it's the Big 11. It's the Big 11." Well, why was the Big Ten the Big 11 with Penn State only? Because Notre Dame was the 12th team to be added, and at the 12th hour, they backed out of the deal. So now people say, "Well, Notre Dame now can join the Big Ten." I don't know that the Big Ten wants Notre Dame anymore, because that left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth that to the 12th hour at the altar, they stepped away. So 30 years later, could it happen? Possibly. But I think now it's more so, we'll call you, don't call us, we'll call you. And now ACC, I mean, Notre Dame is an ACC, as you said, with everything else. It behooves the ACC to really put a stronghold, a leaning, if you will, on Notre Dame to join the ACC full time in every sport. So now we'll see.
And James, Andy, get you guys talk. There's so many ways to look at this, the implications of it in college sports. But I'm going to ask the two younger UH gentlemen, do you think Houston is safe now? Do you think the Big 12 is safe? I don't. Okay. It's not quite the same as the old Big East when Houston joined the Big East, and then half of it left and became the new Big East, and the Big East became the AAC. What are the chances of, James, you first, of any current Big 12 members going to the Pac-12? God, I don't know why they would. But what if they decide to do that? What do you think about that?
I don't see any of them jumping to the Pac-12, just because I think that conference is sort of, reaching for air, looking for anything they can. If, the Big Ten, the ACC or the SEC, I don't know if any of them would offer. I feel like that would be the best chance if they were to leave. In my opinion, I think right now the Big 12 is in a decent position. I think they still need to, pursue some of these teams that have a sour taste in their mouth that are in the Pac-12 right now after this move, to try to, solidify things. But then, the future of sports is completely up in the air. Who knows, 5 years from now, football will be completely broken off and its own thing separate from, the rest of the NCAA sports and stuff. So I don't think there's reason to panic as a UH person right now, but I do think, there will continue to be moving pieces. The Big 12 is in a decent position, like I said, right now, but there's still work still needs to be done in order to, because I don't think some of these other conferences are done in the long run making moves. So,
Andy, what do you think about that question?
No, I agree with James. I would say that right now, maybe your level of concern on a scale of 5, I'd probably say it's a 2. It's something to monitor. I agree with James. I think really the thing that could probably cause UH more and the Big 12 more problems would be the Big 10 or SEC, choose to expand in and what some people have dubbed the super conferences, and you have those two conferences rating from the Big 12 and what's left of the Pac-12. I think that potential scenario, you could see UH being left out again, and then there's these two super conferences in football, and everybody else is kind of like at the end of the day left out to dry, and they essentially are going to be back in the position where they were before when they were in the American Athletic Conference, even going back to Conference USA and just all those years ago. I think it's something to monitor, but I think as of right now, I'm not sure if you're that worried, especially when you look at some of these schools from the Big 12 breaking off and joining the Pac-12. Because, like James said, I don't think from a standpoint that's not really much of a benefit jumping from Big 12 to Pac-12. Albeit, as of now, that could obviously change in a heartbeat with what we've seen the last couple of days.
And let me flip the script on you. Mr. Gibson, you brought this up about the TV markets. I'm going to throw a curve on y'all. What if the Big Ten says, you know what? The city of Houston is a pretty highly ranked TV market. University of Houston President Couture is doing a very good job of getting UH closer to AAU status. As we look forward to expanding, get to our 20 teams, we extend an invitation to the University of Houston because we want that Houston market. Mr. Gibson, what do you say about that?
Well, I will say this.
I'm not saying it's going to happen this year.
Right.
As a scenario.
To quote KG, anything is possible. But I'll add this. On Friday, to your point, not right now, but Washington and Oregon approached the Big Ten on Friday, expressing interest in coming to the Big Ten, and they were quickly told, we're good. So right now, 16 is the number. Eventually reports are 20 could be the end game. I've heard Carolina and Duke floated as potential package coming to the Big Ten. I've heard, me personally, it makes sense. Not that it has to make sense geographically. Clearly, it does it with USC and UCLA, but Missouri and Pittsburgh makes sense. And then you mentioned, it's what you just mentioned, the AAU. The AAU. That AAU school, 15 to 16 teams in the Big Ten are AAU schools. Interestingly enough, circling back to Notre Dame is not an AAU school. Pitt, Missouri are, Carolina, Duke are, Washington, Oregon are. So that's one of the things President Christina Johnson of Ohio State stressed several times, many times during the joint press conference on Friday morning. Academically, the research universities that USC and UCLA are made this very attractive on the academic side as well as the athletic side. So, yes, football is driven, but just put that in the back of your mind for later on. But to answer your question about Houston, possibly, yeah, it could. It could come to that.
Because I think Nebraska is the one school that's not.
Yes.
And they being kicked out is probably not accurate. But they used to be. They're no longer AAU. Correct? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So, and President Couture, it's one of her missions that she still has yet to accomplish to get the University of Houston as an AAU, American Association University member. That is one of her goals. And I think I said it earlier, folks talking sports shows. I think her ultimate is for UH to be in the Big Ten. Okay, of course, that was before Big 12 said, come on over. But ultimately, her goal is to be part of the Big Ten. So just keep that in mind. Fox Sports has the Big Ten. ESPN has the SEC. Let's discuss this. Two different scenarios, James, Andy, Will. If ESPN says, because right now, and bless their hearts, Pac-12 media right negotiations, we're set to begin later this year. Well, they might as well just forget all that discussion because they have no leg to stand on right now with UCLA and USC gone. If ESPN wants to have a presence in the Pacific time zone, should ESPN, in you guys' opinion, go to all the schools and discuss a merger of Big 12, Pac-12, or just say, okay, new commissioner of the Big 12, Brett Yormark, wants to invite Utah, Colorado. Utah, Oregon, Arizona State. Would that work? Make it a Big 16. You get one of the name brand football programs in Oregon. Phil Knight money. Utah, the second best team in football in Pac-12 last few years. Then Arizona State. Thoughts on that? James, you first.
Yeah, I think the latter of what you presented is more likely just because when you're looking at it, I mean, all those schools will bring in some money, but you want to have quality matchups when you're broadcasting. You don't just want to have random games in the Pacific time zone. And so to bring in some, go to the Big 12 and bring in, the four corner schools or something like that, I feel like that's more likely just because then you know exactly the market you're going into, because some of the markets, other Pac-12 schools, I mean, you'll get some money, but it's not completely relevant. I know in one of the articles you sent us about the Pac-12, when they're talking about expansion, they're like, some of these markets won't help us that much. So I think I would probably, if I was ESPN, I'd go the route of, Big 12, invite these four schools, just because then, like I said, you can find a way to maintain those quality matchups, because even if you have schools on the Pacific Coast and stuff, I mean, if it's a random two school game that no one cares about, I mean, it's not going to help your ratings that much.
Well, what do you think about ESPN urging the Big 12 to we want you to invite these four schools?
I would replace Utah with Washington, because Seattle, Salt Lake City,
yeah,
TV market wise, I would replace Washington. I would put Washington in that four and eliminate Utah. So, but yeah, could I see that? I would. I could absolutely see that. Absolutely.
Now, Andy, different question for you. Where does this end? Flip side, go back one more question. I just thought. Phil Knight, billionaire, many times over. Could any of you guys, Andy, you first up with it, believe that Phil Knight can save the Pac conference? Because whatever it is, Pac-10, Pac-12, whatever, what's left of the Pac conference, could he go to ESPN and say, I'm going to invest billions of dollars, you keep Oregon, Washington, and to keep the conference alive, this is what I'm going to do? Could that work? And in that scenario, I do have some kind of concerns about Houston, because I think Pac-12 or Big 12, one of them is going to die in these negotiations. One of those two conferences is going to go away. So could Phil Knight save the Pac-10, Pac-12?
Going back to what Will said, quote KG, I guess anything is possible, but that's a tough question. If you're obviously, I guess you could say that everything has a price, and if the price is right, there could be enough leverage to get ESPN or heck, some other network to invest and commit into keeping the remaining Pacific schools, Oregon, Washington, revolved, and then regrouping from there. But I would say that's more of a long shot, just in terms of there has to be commitment from some of the other schools, not just Oregon, in my opinion. And obviously, Oregon's kind of like the main brand that stays now that UCLA and USC are gone. But I think there has to be much more commitment, not just from one school or one investor per se.
Well, what do you say? You think Phil Knight can save the conference? You think Phil Knight wants to save the conference?
That's the question. Yeah, does he want to? Because I mean, he's a businessman, so he can see, okay, is this worth my time? Is this worth my resources? Or is this already a done deal? So can he? Probably, but does he want to? Or does he see a greater or a better situation for Oregon? I mean, as I said, Friday, Oregon and Washington approached the Big Ten.
Right.
So he sees something like, maybe we need to go ahead and move on. So that's the question.
or make it even messier. What if ESPN says, SEC, we want y'all to invite Oregon?
Mm.
ESPN and Fox run college football. That's I forgot which AD it was. A quote from 11 years ago said, "In the future we'll have two conferences, ESPN and Fox."
Mm.
Right on, it's on track. It's on point to that, which gets me into other areas, and we'll discuss Rockets later on the show. Like I said, this is folks talking sports on Houston Roundball Review, not just Rockets talk on this show. We're going to talk Rockets later on in the show, so keep patient with us on that. We can talk about Kyrie and KD and the Rockets youngsters, Vegas Summer League. Just stick with us. But mega conference talk, a 20-member conference, 20 members in the Big Ten, 20 members in the SEC. What the hell? I say that for football because every year in that scenario, you're going to have 8 or 9 schools in your own conference that you won't play.
Yep.
Every year. What benefit is that? Okay, I mean, it's a mega conference, but it's really 2 conferences in one. It's 2. We don't have divisions anymore. That's going away. But a 20-team or a 24-member conference. Come on, folks. For football, I mean, you really get into Premier League, European soccer stuff when you go on this far. But, James, where does it end? 20 members in a conference, 22, 24. In your opinion, where does it end?
Whenever they figure out, this isn't financially, doesn't financially make the most sense, because like we've talked about this whole time, it's a money move. And like you said, having, a mega conference like that, you're playing half the teams. And like you said, you're not even familiar with half of your conference, basically. So it's sort of like, are they really in the same conference as us? Things like that. But I mean, wherever the money talks, they're going to go to that. And if they think, this 24 team mega conference make them the most money, they're going to lean towards that. If they feel like, this 16, 18, whatever, I think that's, where we sit and just sort of try to capitalize off that and, get teams to play each other more than once and, primetime games and stuff like that, then they'll do that. But they're going to look at all the scenarios and see which one's going to bring in the most cash. And that's where they're going to stick with. And whenever they figure out that they found that right balance, then that's when it will end.
Willie, what do you think about 20 members in a conference, 22, 24? Where does it end?
I think 20 is it. I just think 20 is the number. I mean, why? Don't ask me. I don't know. But I just feel that 20 is going to be it because of what you just said. It's going to be oversaturation. And it's like, well, Willie, why is 16 not oversaturation? For some it may be, but I think 20, yes, you're not going to play everybody in football. But in basketball, you can play everybody. 19 conference games.
And probably the end of non-conference games.
Absolutely. So I think 20 is going to be where, because then, yeah, it's going to be financially feasible. But I think somebody's going to be like, wait a minute. I don't want to share any more of this money. I don't want to share it with 2 more teams, 4 more teams. So I think for a number of reasons, 20, that's going to be it.
Andy, you agree with that? 20 could be it?
Oh, yeah, I absolutely agree. And what both Will and James said, at the end of the day, once the top tier schools start, looking at it from a business perspective, and it's not necessarily financially wise to continue to expand, it's going to stop. And, you'd imagine at some point, whether it be 20, like Will said, maybe it's 22, 24, at some point there's going to be a certain cutoff where that just is not financially viable. But until that mark gets reached, it's going to continue, in my opinion. Like both of these two have said, at the end of the day, money is what makes everything go round and round.
And if it is 20 teams in the Big Ten, 20 teams in the SEC, the pessimist in me as a U.S. alum, lifelong, live here forever. The pessimist in me says, it would not surprise me if UH was excluded from those 40.
Yeah.
Now, let me pose a question. This
Yes.
could be for you, Kris, and for James. But I would say in that scenario where there's two super conferences with the Big Ten and the ACC, I think it's kind of Big Ten or bust, because with Texas A&M and UT and the SEC, I don't think Houston could get in that conference. What say y'all?
If ESPN said yes, they could. I mean, the networks make this go round. We can talk about the academic side of it for rationale, but if ESPN or if Fox says, if Fox says we want Houston market, Fox might be the savior for Houston, because they see ESPN has the Houston market with A&M and Texas. Well, we need to get in Houston for ourselves.
Yes.
So Kevin Warren, we want you to invite Houston to join the Big Ten. So that'll be another reason, and then you could add on with the academics. So in that scenario, Houston could be safe. So it's just so much power, too much power in the networks controlling football, and it's impacting every other sport too. And that part of it just pisses me off. Y'all just go play football Saturday and Sunday, Friday, Saturday, whatever, because this will have an impact on basketball, men's basketball, women's basketball, which nobody cares about nationally, about the impact of this tournament. NCAA tournament at some point could be impacted with this. If the Big Ten and the SEC decide to have their own championship with their 40 schools, 32, 36, 40 schools, whatever, what will the fans of the not 40, what will they do? Will they take their money and not spend it, not bother with these 40 schools, and just say the hell with y'all?
Mm-hmm. No.
What's going to happen with that? What are the, that's where I get into a point where the fans, y'all love college football so much that y'all continue to spend money despite it being an invitational.
Yep.
I stopped doing that years ago. Okay, I support my school, but I don't support college football because it's a farce. It's invitational. Will you go ahead? Give your thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be. I mean, it's the same with, and I hate to do this, not to change lanes, but the fan that says I'll never watch the Cleveland Browns again because they signed Deshaun Watson. Okay. Let the Browns make the Super Bowl.
Yeah, when did the division make the playoffs?
That part. I was trying to.
But my Browns did it. You see my Browns? Yeah.
Right. I tried to go to the extreme. But yeah, so no, I don't believe they'll still watch. They'll still support. They'll still Fox, ESPN, absolutely. CBS. Yes.
James, because I'm trying to think about this. If Fox is just Big Ten, and that's the majority of the games will be on the Big Ten, what if the Big Ten says, CBS, hey, we want to take the SEC's former 2:30 slot? CBS says, all right, great. Where does that leave the Big 12? Because Big Ten negotiations probably have been reopened to really submit the $1 billion per year plus now with UCLA and USC. Where's Big 12 going? Because SEC, part of ESPN, would be on ESPN all day. ABC, probably all day. So where does that leave the Big 12? On ESPN Plus and maybe ESPNU? And hopefully ESPN2. But, where does it end for the Big 12 and TV?
I mean, that's a good question. Like you said, if the Big Ten, approach CBS or something like that, they have a stronger case, and I'm sure CBS would rather broadcast Big Ten than Big 12. Could you see the Big 12 trying to do something where, like Notre Dame with NBC? I don't know.
They should.
I'm just that was the top thing that popped up to my mind. But like you said, yeah, there's not a ton of options if that was to happen, and you'd really leave them scrambling because, like you said, they'd probably end up just sort of scattered around all these random channels that half the people don't even have access to and things like that, and that's trouble.
and Andy and Will, what if ESPN says, "Yep, we got Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC. You guys are not in the SEC, Big 12 teams. So money-wise, this is what we're going to give you." Okay, it's a lot. It's the same what you got before. So be happy with it. But we're not going to give you bump in pay. So yeah, here we go. You go to you're going to be on ESPN Plus and ESPNU. Take it or leave it. Andy?
What would I do if I was in the Big 12 shoes in the new commissioner shoes? Oh, that's you know what? And it's a good reason that there's people that are in different shoes that have it's above. They get the pay grade to make these decisions. But if I were in those shoes, to be quite frankly, I would bet on finding a better deal from just various some of these other platforms, because yes, like you mentioned, there's ESPN, there's CBS, there's Fox, but now there's so many streaming platforms, and there's so many out there. From James, you mentioned NBC. Could Peacock, could that be something that you end up doing? Apple, we saw what they did with the MLS. Amazon, what they're going to be doing with Thursday Night Football and the NFL. If ESPN is going to treat the Big 12 like the B conference, the B show essentially when it comes to those football matchups, and they don't even get a slot in ESPN, much less ABC, then why are you going to stick around with being a second option and being on ESPN Plus and ESPNU when you can bet on yourself at the very least, possibly get a better deal with some of these other platforms that are available when you think of how much the streaming platform, the quote unquote new media that's starting to arise nowadays. I would bet on getting a better deal elsewhere.
Here's a quote from NBA Commissioner Adam Silver about new Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark. Brett is one of the most skilled and knowledgeable executives in sports and entertainment. His decades of operational experience, relentless work ethic, and strong industry relationships will be of enormous value to the Big 12, its school, and fans. Even got a quote from Fox Sports executive. It's kind of surprising because Big 12 and soon to be Fox Sports is going to be all Big 10, looks like. On behalf of Fox Sports, we'd like to officially congratulate Brett Yormark on being named the new commissioner of the Big 12. Brett is a talented and innovative executive who brings a remarkably unique perspective to the position. Under his leadership and vision, the conference is set up for success, and we look forward to continuing to build on our relationship as a premier partner of the Big 12. Will.
Was that Eric Shanks? Who was that?
That was Eric Shanks. Yeah, I forgot to give his name. Eric Shanks, yes.
Okay.
Fox Sports CEO and executive producer.
Okay.
So could we see more Big 12 football on Fox Sports?
Could you? Oh, I'm so glad.
Piggyback or sandwich Big 10 football.
Possibly. Again, anything is possible. I mean, Brett Yormark, from my understanding, as the Big 12 commissioner, his industry relationships, his main focus is NIL and taking that NIL piece into greater heights as far as the conference is concerned. But that being said, with opportunities to grow football, yeah, absolutely, I could see that.
And I think his industry connections from Rock Nation, ties of Rock Nation, that's going to be a help. Linear TV is still where the most money is. So from a Big 12 perspective, and obviously because Houston is still set on schedule to join the Big 12 July 1st, 2023. So we're having a discussion more with the slant toward the Big 12. So Big 12 should be okay. I think they got to be proactive. Mr. Yormark needs to use his connections, keep a linear platform for the football games. If Apple, Amazon wants to supplement with money, streaming wise, that's great too. But it's still, the money might be good, but the eyeballs just aren't there yet on the streaming platforms like they are for NBC, CBS, ABC, and then to a lesser extent Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports 2, etc. But Big 12 got to be proactive. And I go back to it. They got to be proactive. They can't let the Pac-12 beat them to whatever decisions happen, because one of those two conferences, just I really believe, will be gone within the next 3 years. So we'll see about all that. I hope, the rivalries are gone, traditions out the window, all that stuff be damned. UCLA, USC been in the Pac-12 for 100 years, gone. I mean, it's just college football it's a business. So any of those folks who were criticizing us for the thoughts, the reality we brought to about college football, what are you saying now? This is pro sports. This is pro sports, period. Shifting gears to pro sports. Mr. Gibson.
Yes, sir.
Seemed like the Cleveland Cavaliers spending money.
Yeah, the bag.
Yeah, who
getting
the big bag from the Cavs, sir? Who's getting a huge bag?
As the kids say, all-star point guard Darius Garland has agreed to a deal. The standard rookie extension, 5 years, $193 million. If he is to make all NBA first or second or third team in this upcoming season, that deal goes to 5 years, $231 million.
That's
fully guaranteed.
Yeah,
fully guaranteed.
That's a
no
surprise.
options. No player option. No player option in year 5. That was the surprise.
Yeah,
most people thought in year 5 there would be a player option. There's no player option in year 5 for this deal.
Because the Pelicans made a similar deal with Zion Williamson, and Zion has had battled injuries way more than Darius Garland. Yeah. But free agency started. The monopoly money been tossed around. Anything surprise you so far, James? In free agency, because we're going to talk about the trades in a second, but the free agency, anything surprise you, James?
There weren't many huge surprises. It was more trade side of things. Most things ended up, Jalen Brunson to New York. Everyone knew that was going to happen. I wouldn't say like there was, a mind-blowing signing or anything like that.
Andy, how about you? Anything in free agency, NBA free agency surprised you so far?
No, so far I agreed with James. I mean, outside of Jalen Brunson and the Knicks that deal they were able to agree to, there hasn't really been anything that has been able to kind of catch the eyeballs where everything has just been overshadowed by Kevin Durant, Brooklyn Nets, Kyrie Irving, and when we're going to get in trades in a second, but the biggest head scratch is probably the Rudy Gobert Minnesota trade.
Yeah. The one thing surprised me, free agency, is how much money the Blazers are giving to Anthony Simons.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not hating on Anthony, because if somebody is going to give me $100 million, what do I sign? You need my account number. You got everything. You write a number. Everything good? You got that? Okay. 4 years, $100 million on basically 3 months of work. Good for him. Go ahead, Andy.
I was gonna say, I guess the one contract you could also bring up would be with Oklahoma City and what they gave Lou Dort.
Lou Dort, 5 years, $85 million. That's a lot too. Yeah, that's a lot. Okay, for a guy whose offense is getting better, his defense is stellar, but 5 years, $85 million. Again, for him, if somebody gives me $85 million, yep. Where do I sign?
Yep.
You got. Can I do e-signature? What you need? Andy brought it up. Minnesota going all in for Rudy Gobert and so many first-round draft picks. Willy Gibson, you first. Was that too much to give up for Rudy Gobert?
Absolutely. 4 number 1 picks, 4 players. Trader Danny does it again. I mean, kudos to Danny Ainge, because he fleeced Tim Conley from Minnesota. Come on. 8 players for Rudy Gobert. I mean, it was another player added to that player that trade as well, but 4 number 1 picks, 4 players for Rudy Gobert. Absolutely, that was too much to me, in my opinion.
James, what do you say?
Yeah, 100% agree. I laughed when I saw the deal just because, and especially like a Walker Kessler, including him in there, like you could have built. That's a young, big center that could have complemented Rudy Gobert. Like is a one-way player most of the time. He's a great defender offensively. He's got a lot of flaws. He's not going to bring the Timberwolves a championship with their current roster. That's just not going to happen. And so, yeah, I mean, they gave up way too much. For Gobert. And I mean, it makes me think what Kevin Durant's asking price is now.
We'll get to that in a second. Yeah, next. Andy, your thoughts on Minnesota giving up what they did for Gobert?
No, absolutely. I think you got to, if you're going to define it in one word, it's got to be a head scratcher just because, when you think of Rudy Gobert, you don't think of him. He's obviously an all-star level caliber player, but does he really move the needle in Minnesota? Where now, heck, with the move, are they even top 4 in the Western Conference? With the move, it's a question of fit. You don't even know if he can play, how well they match up with Karl Anthony Towns going big. I guess they're trying to remake the Twin Towers. But I mean, my goodness, 4 first-round picks, mortgaging your future, like you said, 4 additional players. I just think it's a head scratcher that to be quite frank, I think it's going to blow up in Minnesota's face. Because especially in the Western Conference, I just don't see the benefit of the move. I don't think Rudy Gobert is the missing piece that they are going to jump them from what they were the 7th seed this past season to the top in the Western Conference. I don't see it.
And Andy brings up a great point. Will, your thoughts on this? Does it make Cat better? Can't Cat be effective defensively at the 4?
No, I don't think it makes him better at all. I mean, no, it doesn't make him better.
But now we're going to get into it. If Rudy Gobert got that much, what in the hell will Kevin Durant? I mean, KD's maybe a year or so older than Rudy, but he's KD. Okay, like the great quote, paraphrasing the great quote. Do you know who I am? I'm Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant.
What is he going to get? What is Brooklyn going to get from him? Either. Yes, and no options. 4 years of KD, could be the 4th year specifically. Father Time could be catching up with him at that point. But what is Brooklyn going to get? 5, 6, 7 first-round picks for KD? Or they go we want young talent, young elite talent in return and give us 4 or 5 first-round picks. James, what do you think about it?
They're going to be heavy on the asking for picks because they have none basically after, going all in to try to build, this Harden, Durant, Irving thing, which didn't work out. And they basically given up their picks for the next 5 years or so. So I think they'll go pretty heavy on that. If they got a younger, talented player that they could build around, I still think they would ask for 3 or 4 picks minimum, but just picks alone, 6 or 7 at least.
Well, Toronto, young talent, New Orleans, Brandon Ingram, Phoenix, I don't see the Suns giving up Book, and DeAndre Ayton, cap-wise, probably have to be a 3rd team. I have to send DeAndre to Utah, make it a huge 3-team deal. But where do you see KD ending up via trade?
Don't laugh, because I heard this earlier today, and it makes sense. I mean, it makes him look terrible. But don't sleep on Golden State. Wiseman, Poole.
I heard about that yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, Kuminga. Andrew Wiggins. Makes KD look horrible because you went there after they beat you, and now you go back after they won without you.
Yep.
So it makes him look horrible. But again, as I told someone else, and then they said, well, I don't think they'll trade him there because he may not want to go there. Who cares where he wants to go? Sean Mark's job is to make the best deal for the Brooklyn Nets.
Yep. Not
to placate and pacify KD and send him to his preferred destination. So
Yeah, I agree with that. And so we'll see how it all plays out. And it's up to Sean Marks to do that. Get the best offer for the Brooklyn Nets. Owner Joseph Tsai wants the best offer for the Nets. He wants some impact players as well as draft picks. He wants more impact players and picks. Another Brooklyn Net player, Kyrie Irving. Will, is LeBron serious? He wants Kyrie on the Lakers?
As we talked about it Monday, yes. And here, John Wall. Look, John Wall is a clutch sports guy. He's a Rich Paul guy. If LeBron truly wanted John Wall, he would be in LA right now. He would be in the Lakers uniform right now.
Yeah.
Let me clarify that. He's in LA with the Clippers. If LeBron truly wanted John Wall, he would be a Laker. Clearly, LeBron is set on bringing in Kyrie Irving because the other deal was Malcolm Brogdon, who now is in Boston on a trade. So the Chris Haynes reported yesterday they're working on the deal. The Nets want to include Joe Harris. The Lakers want Seth Curry.
Right.
So, but yeah, Kyrie, absolutely LeBron's serious about that.
LeBron, he's believed he can keep Kyrie sane and level-headed. Good luck, brother. Because the past 3 years, okay.
Well, Kyrie actually said that. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think. Was it more than an athlete? Have you seen Kyrie spoke about that? How when he was in Cleveland, he was a knucklehead, essentially.
Yeah.
I didn't want to listen. And now I think he's determined, look, he has won one playoff series without LeBron.
He needs to improve his image. Okay.
Yes.
If it's important, he needs to do something to transform his image. Agreed.
Yep. So he now realizes, man, I should have listened. We've all had that moment where, man,
yes,
so-and-so tried to tell me. And now I think Kyrie's realizing, man.
Do you really, Will? Do you believe that? You really do believe he's realized it? The lights come on?
Yep. Here's why. True story. Worst kept secret in America was when Brown was in Miami, he was coming back to Cleveland. Everybody knew that.
Yep.
All right. So the Cavs are in Miami. And LeBron, pregame, layup lines, talking to a couple of guys. He tells Kyrie, listen, I'm thinking about coming home. I'm coming back. Now, most young players would be ecstatic, excited. LeBron's want to come in and play with me. Kyrie looked at him square in the eye and said, why would you want to do that? Because Kyrie truly thought it was his team.
Right.
I'm the man. I'm the guy. And so LeBron's kind of oh, okay. And then early on that first year, there was a game in Portland. And Kyrie had 0 assists. And LeBron pulled him aside and said, you will never, ever have another game where you have no assists. And he also said something to Deion Waiters at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And Kyrie was just too young to realize, he's trying to help me. I'm so caught up and I want to be the man. I didn't want to listen to him helping me. And I think now at 30 years old, after what he went through in Boston with Jaylen Brown and the young fellas, and after he's gone through here in Brooklyn, I think he's now to the point where he's realizing, maybe I should be listening. And he tried to tell me before, so I think I'll listen now.
All right, we'll see. All right, well, I'm going to toss this out for James and Andy. Put this on the screen from John. Starting lineup for UH. I'm assuming men's basketball, of course, not women's basketball, John. I kid. Go for it, James. Today, July 3rd, starting 5 for the men's basketball team for UH.
Okay. Jamal Shed, Marcus Sasser, Kamon Mark, Jarris Walker, and Reggie Chaney.
Andy?
That's obviously your backcourt is set with Jamal Shed and Marcus Sasser. I think that's the tricky part is, do you want Tremont Mark starting or do you want him being a 6-man off the bench? And so let me skip the 3 spot for a second. I agree. Jarris Walker will be at 4. I think a kind of a dark horse to start. I think Jawan Roberts could start at the 5 next season, but I wouldn't be surprised if Reggie Chaney gets the nod. And going back to the 3 spot, I'll keep Jamon Mark in. I agree with James. I have Mark starting with Sasser and Jamal Shea.
Yeah, I'll probably go with that 5 as well as of July 3rd. Man, that's a loaded team. Man, oh man. Let me see if I'm forgetting about it, because I like Juwan Roberts coming off the bench with his energy.
Yeah.
That would be a good thing. That makes sense. Do we have anything changed about what's my young man's name? Pulling it up. Malik Wilson. Do we know is he going to play? I mean, they're still talking like he's going to be eligible to play this year, which I don't know about that yet.
Yeah, that's the kind of the odd thing, because like you said, they are going about like he's ready to play from day one. But I was told, and Chris, you brought it up, from what I was told, he needs a waiver to be able to be eligible to play next season. Now, there hasn't been any news on a waiver, but if you look at how some of the coaches and how it looks like he's going to be ready from day one. But I believe he still needs a waiver before he's eligible to play. And that's what I've been told.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so if he doesn't get the waiver, I'm not sure who would be the backup point guard.
I mean, would they make Ramon Walker? I don't know.
So that's an issue there. Coming off the bench, Ramon's going to play. There's a question of they're going to have to stagger Jamal and Marcus at the 1 minutes anyway. I think Emmanuel Sharp's going to play some. Terrence Arsenault, young fella, is going to play some. Keyron Powell and J.V. Francis, the big young man. We'll see. They got to earn the minutes. I think J.V. Francis will get minutes at the 5 spot. Man, oh man. John's comment here, worry about the front court. Don't worry about the front court, John. The only issue about the front court is inexperience. It ain't talent.
Yeah.
It is inexperience. That's it.
I mean, just look at Walker and Jawan Roberts. That would be one heck of a defensive lineup, which is how athletic, crazy they're going to be. Obviously, Reggie Chaney, he was the starter when they went to the Final Four, so you're not going to be lacking from a leadership standpoint, whatever. I think the biggest question mark I see for Reggie Chaney is going to be health.
Yeah.
And I think the real question is, what does Keyron Powell, does he get minutes?
It's up to him. He'll get minutes if he plays defense like Coach Sampson and the staff want. That's up to him. It's on him. The time with Reggie being out this summer with the surgeries, giving the youngsters, young big men, more minutes in practice. That should help J.V. Francis and Keyron Powell. But we go at the 5.
Has been, I was just going to add that J.V. Francis is he's a player that I believe Calvin Sampson has been high on during the Zoom availability. So, I mean, that him and Powell is going to be interesting to see who kind of carves out a nice rotational spot for themselves.
Going back to our starting 5, I'm going to put Ramon Walker at the 3 instead of Jamon Mark.
Yeah,
have Jamon Mark Jamon come off the bench at the 1 or at the lead guard to help run the offense coming off the bench.
Yeah.
So because if I got to learn this, Malik Wilson does not get the waiver approved, you're going to need a backup point guard. And Jamar can do that, be a lead guard, facilitator. He's healthy now. And when he was healthy, he looked like the good James Harden, with his ability to break down defenses, get to the basket, and get to the free throw line. So if he's back healthy now, which, check this out, Will. Coach Sampson told media Jamal Mark was cleared to play, 3 weeks ago? Something like that. Mm-hmm. John Rothstein put out there Wednesday like it was news. Okay, John, we knew that weeks ago. We knew that already. But
first week of June.
Because you said it, is news. But Kelvin told us that weeks ago. All right, John, whatever. But
I
yeah,
will.
go ahead.
No, I will add what you brought up about Jamon Mark, and if they go with Ramon Walker or someone else at 3 and have Jamon Mark come off the bench. I think it's kind of interesting that Calvin Sampson said that kind of the thing that they're focusing on with Mark is of him being, making the right play first. I think he called them a scorer first and a scorer second in years past. So that'll be interesting to see. It obviously UH is going to need him to do much more than just be kind of have that score mentality. So I could see them trying to make him more of a playmaker, facilitator, and the backup point guard that they need once Jamal Shead and Marcus Sasser are on the floor.
And if I could add, I mean, we don't know 100%, but like this is a good problem for UH. Last year, they barely had enough guards to field a team. So, having all these options, it's definitely there's a lot of depth, and it's a good problem, and it's going to work out whoever they decide, to be that third guard. We'll just have to wait and see, but all those guys are going to get minutes.
Yep. Now, if Malik Wilson gets a waiver, and he'll be back the backup point guard, and I think Jamon would start at the 3.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're looking at they could go 10 deep next season with Marcus Sasser, Jamal Shead, Ramon Walker, J.V. Francis, Jamon Mark, Jawan Roberts, Emmanuel Sharp, Terrence Arsenault, Jarris Walker, Reggie Chaney, and I didn't name Kieron Powell, Malik Wilson. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so the depth, healthy, gotta stay healthy, knock on wood. Everybody stays healthy. They could be very deep, very versatile, and go big, small, athletic, offensive firepower with defense tossed in, shut down guys. They want to make it just say y'all ain't gonna score, defensive plays too. So it's fun to talk about that. We'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, fun problem to have. And of course, Coach Sampson does not typically play freshmen a lot of minutes unless they earn them. So Terrence Arsenault may not get a lot of minutes this year, but he's still a very talented player. Jarris Walker, from last I heard, was looking very good in the summer, looking like the 5-star that he is. And Marcus Sasser has a lot to prove to media, himself, NBA people, that he's worthy of being a first-round pick next season. So fun times for UH men's basketball. They announced a matchup on Veterans Day. Who was it against, guys?
St. Joseph.
St. Joseph.
St. Joseph.
Game will be on CBS Sports Network. Double hitter. Yep, Indianapolis, 5 p.m. on CBS Sports Network. That's the first game TV, because I think Coach Sampson, who was it? James, Andy?
It was
Northern
Colorado.
Northern Colorado. Yeah, well, I don't really count that, but yeah. Anyway.
November, so that'll probably be their exhibition game. I believe November 7th. That's a Monday.
Yeah, that's a Monday.
So that's an interesting date as well. But
so we'll see. They haven't announced anything concrete besides the St. Joseph matchup in the Veterans Classic. All right, wrap it up with Deshaun Watson news from our guy in Ohio, Mr. Gibson. What can you share?
Yeah, there was a 3-day conference or 3-day hearing with Sue Robinson, who's the hearing officer, mutually agreed upon between the NFL and NFLPA. Interesting. NFL pretty much made Deshaun's case for him and the PA when they said, yes, we did investigate Robert Kraft. We did find some things, but yet we decided not to punish him. Now, there's a direct contradiction to when they said, when you tarnish the shield, owners, front office executives are held to a higher standard than players. So you've admitted in this hearing that, yes, you did find some things against one of your owners, but yet decided not to discipline him. But now you want to discipline your player for pretty much similar situations. So it's going to be interesting to see how Judge Robinson rules. July 11th is the deadline that she asked for briefs to be submitted by both sides. Decision still could come prior to training camp. Honestly, it makes the NFL look super bad. And it also is leading people to believe that the punishment may not be as severe as once thought.
All right. Thank you for that, sir. We're going to wrap it up. Vegas Summer League starts July 7th. Rockets versus Orlando. I know Rocket fans are looking forward to that game. Whatever.
Paulo and Jabari.
It's Summer League. Jabari's going to probably have a point to prove. Games on ESPN, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. Mr. Gibson. July 9th versus OKC. Games on ESPN 2 at 7 p.m. So Keegan Murray, Sacramento had 26 and 8 yesterday. Good for him. Nobody questioned his talent. So good for him. But once again, it's Summer League. So don't freak out one way or the other. Don't freak out if Jabari Smith goes 2 for 20 July 7th. And don't freak out if he goes 18 for 20 on July 9th. Whatever. Just play well, learn the system, and don't get injured. That's my main objective for Summer League. Will, you got something to say?
I do. I just want to circle back to free agency. It's something I didn't mention then, but Miles Bridges. Man, Miles Bridges. Just unfortunate situation.
Yeah.
All the way around for his family, for him.
Her.
Yeah, something for his family. Her.
Right.
First and foremost, man, just he was arrested for felony battery last week in Los Angeles, and his wife published some photos and an injury report, for lack of a better term, of the injuries that she sustained at his hands. Now, he was 48 hours away from a $173 million contract.
Yep.
And now, not only does he not have that any longer, the Charlotte Hornets are in the process of rescinding his restricted free agency contract. Sad all the way around.
Yep.
Sad all the way around.
And let me say this for legalese.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. Yeah. It doesn't look good for him with the report, injury report, medical report, because I think medical report said male, so it didn't name him. So legally, we don't, it has to be proven. It's a bad look, and some fans of certain NBA teams, why didn't y'all toss some money and make a run at Bridges? Well, NBA teams have investigators. Okay, so there's method to the madness, and lo and behold, what comes out hours before free agency starts. Okay. So on that sad note, it's sad, and so I don't want to judge and go any further. But no, it's news. But yeah, you gotta say it. It's news. That's what we're going to talk about that here on Folks Talking Sports. It's news. It's sports news.
Yeah.
But you got the floor. Wrap it up, Mr. Gibson. How can folks interact with you and contact you on the internet?
Appreciate it, sir. You can always find me on Twitter and Instagram at Willy Gibson 7, Facebook at Will Knowles, and WTGsports.com.
Mr. Yanez, next, sir, how can folks find you?
Yeah, they can find me on Twitter at @Yanez_5. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter on the official Pawd Slama Jama Twitter account. That's at PAWDSLAMAJAMA on Twitter, and also check out Club City Control Room on YouTube, where we have our video podcast there for every episode, as well as Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
And James Mueller?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at JDM2186, and then all my stuff is at the Daily Cougar. Got some stuff about UH's preparations for the Big 12 coming out later in the month, so be sure to check that out when it comes out.
And I'm Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review. Twitter, you see me there on the screen. I'll say it for the audio audience, THEHR Review. Going back off what Andy Yanez touched on. Let's Rage Cougs, the unofficial postgame show for UH Athletics, UH football, and men's basketball. We got our first sponsor. We'll be announcing that when football season starts. We got the first 5 games of football season taken care of, and the first 5 games of men's basketball taken care of with a sponsorship with a main sponsor. And we're getting big, Will, James, with the primary sponsor.
Absolutely.
We have 2 more tiers, secondary and tertiary sponsorship levels as well. So you still got chances to be a sponsor of Let's Raise Cougs on Twitter and Houston Roundball Review channel as well. So onward and upward for that. Andy, you got something you want to add?
No, I was just saying, we're, like you said, that's primary sponsorship. We're looking for as many sponsors as possible when it comes to secondary sponsorship, tertiary, live reads, sponsor tweets, anything you can think of. We are open to it. This is, you know, for lack of a better phrase, it's open season. We're trying to grow as much as it can be. Like you said, it's unofficial now. Who knows how far we could take it? And we gotta, to quote Kevin Sampson, we all had to start somewhere. So we're gonna grow, and hopefully it grows into something big.
Agreed. You know, we're starting small. Hopefully it gets big. Onward and upward. So thank you very much to everybody and for your comments on the YouTube channel. Ulim, thank you for your comments. John, thank you for yours. R3, thank you for your comments. We'll do if you missed Saturday's Let's Talk Houston Rockets, watch the rebroadcast on YouTube channel. Assuming the Rockets have post-game media via Zoom during Summer League, they'll probably have a Zoom session on Saturday, July 9th, after the game against OKC. If that happens, then the Let's Talk Houston Rockets live stream show will start later than 9:30 p.m. because I'll be in the Rockets media session because the game starts at 7, should end around 9:15, Zoom call around 9:30. So just be a subscriber to the channel, and I'll post updates on the community tab at Houston Roundball Review on YouTube. Guys, thank you very much for your comments, your insight. Have a safe firework day tomorrow on Monday, July 4th. Look forward to it. Everybody good for next Sunday, July 10th? I think we're good, right? How about y'all?
Should work.
Yep, that'll work.
All right, so we'll try it again. And then the closer we get to football and training camp, the schedule will probably change. But we're not quite there yet. But thank you once again to everyone for watching and listening to us on Folks Talking Sports. Until next Sunday, take care.